Welcome to Good Morning Joy. I'm Shari Alyse. I hope that you have grabbed your favorite cup of joy and you are all in on today's episode because it is a powerful testament of finding joy and light after darkness. My guest today, Jane Epstein, is not only a powerful advocate for survivors of abuse, but she is an inspiring example of what life looks like on the other side when you find joy. And then a little later in the show, we're going to be back on the chat bench and I'm going to be harassing people with a bunch of questions on this week's Sharing with Shari. But for now, it's time to share with you the good news you should know about on the Joy Report. In the heart of Marshall University's Starbucks, a small act of kindness has blossomed into a remarkable movement. Karen Collingsworth, 65, a decades-long employee of the Starbucks at Marshall University, who has come to be known as Mom to many of her student coworkers, has faced some major car issues over the years. Collingsworth's reputation for kindness might explain why an entire campus full of students and faculty came to her aid when they heard that she was having trouble with her 2004 Kia, which was running on its last legs. Fueled by their desire to assist Karen, they brainstormed ideas and suggested starting a GoFundMe campaign with the goal of raising a modest $10,000. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. The donations poured in not only from her current and former fellow students, but also from faculty, staff, customers, and strangers. Karen Collingsworth, it seems, holds a special place in the hearts of many as donations have totaled over $40,000 and still growing. When asked what she thought, Collingsworth said, "I know those kids love me, and that's what makes my life worthwhile." Collingsworth recently drove away in a brand new Kia Sportage. This new vehicle now gives Karen the opportunity to focus on her favorite thing, offering up coffee and kindness to her customers. Before I introduce you to today's guest, I want to let you know that there is some adult content contained and possible trigger warnings. I share this with you today because this story is about healing and finding joy after unimaginable trauma. If you would read her story on paper, it might sound like a tragic one. Abused from her sibling from ages 6 to 12, stripping by the age of 21, and widowed at the age of 34. But that is not the story that my guest today is defined by. Jane Epstein is an advocate for abuse survivors. She is also the co-founder of multiple advocacy and support groups. She has spoken on the TEDx stage and it's been seen over 500,000 times. Her story has been featured in People magazine. But the inspiring thing about this is that that's not even the best part of her story. She is in a brand new chapter. And this chapter, I can't wait to hear about today. Please welcome to the show, Jane Epstein. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Shari. Thank you for letting me be part of this and share my story with your audience.
I have been waiting to have this conversation with you because, you and I know we've talked a lot before today, and we come from very similar backgrounds and stories, although with different details. And the thing that is so important and that I am so excited to talk about is where you are today. Of course, we're going to touch on what has happened in your life to get you here, but the fact that you have been able to light up dark corridors and you are still here today and shining so beautifully, I'm really honored.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you talked to me a little bit behind the scenes about how finding joy and gratitude in your life was challenging for you. And so much so that you told me that someone like myself, you would have hated at the time.
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you talk about a little about your hatred of me?
It's not personal to Shari.
Yeah.
But there was a time in my life, and I think a lot of people who might still be in that situation, when I was in the depths of despair and depression, I couldn't find gratitude. I didn't want to find gratitude. I needed to feel my pain, and I think we can meet people wherever they are. And it was actually a very conscious effort to become grateful. And I think I shared this story with you as well, that I was trying to get out of my life, so much so that I wanted out of my marriage and wanted to leave my husband. And I started lying, saying, I am grateful for my husband. And I would cringe, I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my marriage. And it wasn't true at the time, but I kept saying it. And today I am grateful for my husband. I am grateful for my marriage. But yes, it was a struggle. Yes. And I didn't want to hear from people who found joy. I wasn't there.
It's completely understandable. I mean, sometimes I annoy myself. No, but I'm honestly saying that it is hard to see when you are in the depths of trauma, to see someone that represents happiness and joy and all that and not feel what you felt. For someone that might actually be in that place right now, like, what do you think would be helpful for someone that's sitting maybe watching us right now who might be thinking the same about both of us?
Sure, I have been there. As you stated, is hopefully by hearing my story and knowing that I was there and that I had to claw my way out of depression, that you can see that you can take one little piece and take what works for you. And I do hope that you can find healing. And I hope that one day you can find joy as well. That's my hope. Just take what works for you at the time. Take a small bite.
I love that. I love that, being very specific about what works for you, because you're right. I share joy tips all the time, but me hugging trees may not help somebody else, right? Like It's very specific. And I know for you, when you were in the midst of it, you talked a little bit about, in your story, about exercise. Was that a big thing for you?
Exercise was a big thing for me. In fact, I had an exercise addiction, and now I can exercise because I want to exercise. And I want to see my friends and I want to be accountable. But there was a point where I had to exercise in order to get through it. And I believe, like you take a lot of hikes in nature, and I believe in the power of moving our bodies and being outdoors. I believe in that.
Yeah. Mine, less for the exercise, more for the hugging.
And the sunrises.
And the sunrises, yes. But that was, and that still is absolutely, it's a daily practice.
Daily.
It's joy and feeling that and being positive doesn't just come from one day you snap your fingers.
No, it did not happen overnight. And I don't hug trees.
You don't know what you're missing.
I might have to give it a shot. But it did not happen overnight. I have been healing for many years, at least 10 years, and I'm still healing. I still have the trauma responses. Ask my husband. We experienced those this weekend. So I still have them. I think just taking baby steps and, taking what works for you. Like we've talked about, I think every process is different. Every grief process, every trauma is different. Every support system is different. I just started, honestly, with a small gratitude journal. And I wrote 3 things that I was grateful for a day. And I actually happened upon this by accident. And I was grateful for the smell of brownies. I was grateful for the smell of fresh baked bread. I was grateful for the feel of green grass on my toes. And it doesn't have to be big things. It can be little tiny things.
Now I want brownies. But so let's back up a little bit. We don't have to go deep into the details, but I want people to understand, where you were at, because now where you are and where we're moving forward to is a completely different place. Can you share just a little bit about your background?
Sure. I describe my story as having happened out of order. I was sexually abused by a sibling on and off for 6 years, and it changed the trajectory of my life. It changed the way I thought about myself, affected my self-esteem, and it made me transactional in my relationships, which led me into stripping, which was very transactional. And side note about stripping, it was actually very healing for me because I learned how to feel pretty and I learned how to talk to people. But it also takes you down a dark path. But through stripping, I met my first husband, and he gave me an ultimatum. He said, me or stripping? And he was my knight in shining armor. And it sounds obvious. Of course, you're going to jump off the stage and run away with the knight in shining armor. But for me, it wasn't that simple because I was giving up control. I was giving up my ego. But I eventually did quit dancing, and he taught me a lot. And we got married, and I thought we'd stay married. But the trauma started coming up because I wasn't known, but I don't know where that relationship would have gone because he ended up having terminal cancer and he passed away. Now, as tragic as that sounds, I thought, okay, that's my story. I can talk about grief. But I wasn't finished yet. I got remarried to my now husband, and that's when the memories resurfaced of the childhood trauma. And I thought I was depressed because I was depressed over missing my late husband, because I did not want to acknowledge that, no, you did experience something traumatic as a child. I didn't want to acknowledge it. And I kept trying to outrun it, and it doesn't work. I ran marathons, and all I ended up with was injuries and blisters, and still had to deal with the trauma. But I did, and it's like I said, it's not overnight, but I have joy in my life. I have a lot of joy in my life now, in this new chapter, definitely.
One of the things that, we relate so much together on is the carrying of this story.
Yes.
I had seen that you wrote this, and I loved it so much, and I think it's a powerful example of where you are today. And it says, don't stay in your story. Own your story with grace. When you do, it loses its power, and you get to rewrite a new ending.
Yes.
And I think that's the message as we talk more today about this, is this idea of rewriting, of not staying in it. Talk about your advocacy work first.
Right. I didn't set out to do that either. Mm-hmm. All of my healing processes have been very by accident. But I felt like I was the only person who experienced sibling sexual abuse and trauma. And I went to Google, and it was silent. And I realized I can't be the only person. And so I started talking about it, and I started hearing from more and more people. And that's how I realized, no, this is a silent epidemic. And I started hearing from parents who it happened in their family. And they'd say, we didn't know this was a thing. And then I started hearing from those who had caused harm. And they were going through a really tough process as well. And I thought, wow, we really need to talk about this. And the more and more I talked about it, the more advocacy I kept falling into. And I kept hearing from more and more survivors. And an interesting thing happens. When you can help someone else, you can get them the resources they need, and you can help them, that helps you heal. So that's kind of how that's taken place.
And you've done powerful work. I just got emotional a little bit, because I think that's what we carry when we go from having experienced the trauma and starting to heal ourselves, and then wanting to help other people. We continue, and you continue to carry that story with you, because there is power in that, right? Would you say
Yes.
like that there's taking back some of your power by being able to help others in that situation?
Absolutely, yeah.
But then also what happens, and I know that you're in this stage right now, is that at some point we go, okay, I've been carrying this for so long and talking about it for so long that maybe it's time to turn a page.
Right.
Does that
Yes.
resonate with you right now?
Yeah, because I went from victim to survivor to advocate. And part of my advocacy is I can look back and say, I'm not really a survivor anymore. That's a chapter in my life. And I'm moving on into this next chapter, which is a little in limbo right now, because I am still an advocate, but I'm not really a survivor anymore. So, we're all growing, we're all developing all the time, and at least I'm moving forward, which it feels good.
I can only relate it, and we've talked about this to what I went through, where I was speaking out about my abuse as a child for many years, because there was that feeling of healing every time you do.
I do hope that if someone's watching this and that they are a survivor, and if you haven't shared your story, I do encourage that. Share it with your peers, or share it with a tree. I believe
they're good listeners.
They're good listeners, and they won't give you positive accolades. They won't tell you what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I do encourage survivors to share their story, even if it's anonymously, even if it's written, because that it loses its power over you that way. Yes.
And then there comes that point where you realize that you are so much more than that. And you can stand in your own power without having to tell that story of where you came from to now. And just being in this space is enough. And that's what I feel from you. And what is so exciting about where you're at, and as we talk, is that it's powerful and joyful to be a mom, to be right where you are at this present moment.
I love being a mom right now.
I know you do.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, talk about motherhood right now for you.
I am a mom of 2 teenage boys, and well, you would think, but they're actually really good kids. I call them plug and play.
I just imagine I see all your posts and I just see you like just giving them steaks and they're happy.
Yeah, I give them steaks and they are very happy. Steaks and video games, and they are completely happy. They like to fight over tomahawk steaks. And there's a lot of joy in seeing your kids fight over dessert at a dinner out. It brings me joy because they're finding happiness in the things that my family, the Epsteins, we love to eat.
Yeah. I mean, and you're just really living. And I know that you mentioned that was one of the things for you, is this permission to feel joy and to live and be alive after the death of your first husband.
Sure. Grief is a funny thing. And I thought I was going to be talking about grief when that happened. I didn't expect to be an advocate for survivors. I thought I know grief well, but grief actually taught me a lot about being a survivor. When my late husband passed, I was forced to feel. I was forced to feel the pain. I didn't understand it at the time. I can look back on it now and say, okay, I was alive for the first time in a very long time, and I felt joy. So grief is interesting that way. I felt joy for being alive. I felt joy for being taught the lessons I was taught at 34 years old, that, okay, life is short. I was fortunate to have a love of my life, and I ended up getting 2 loves of my life. So that was kind of how I experienced grief and joy at the same time. And it also taught me, I kept thinking, okay, when I've made it a year, I'll be okay. When I made it 2 years, I'll be okay. When I'm remarried, I'll be okay. And it kind of taught me that sometimes the finish line moves or the finish line changes. And so I was able to apply that healing process to my sexual abuse healing, which I'm still healing from. And that's okay. I'm still there.
I think what you just said is so impactful and important for people to hear, that it's okay to be right where we're at, and you talked about trauma responses earlier. I mean, I still have them, but we're able to become aware of them and recognize them and know where they're coming from.
Yes.
And that awareness is part of joy, that knowing, what your habits are, what behaviors you have, because it allows you to separate yourself from that. And I know that in our private conversations that you bring that out, you're like, oh, that's my response, or that's right.
Yes. Yes.
And it's so helpful to just do that healing work to be able to get there. And I think a lot of people might feel that after something like this happens, or when these events are happening in the world, that they feel guilty about feeling joy again. Was that something that you went through?
It is something I went through, but I was very fortunate in that my late husband, we knew he was passing. We knew he was going to die. And he said, I want you to go on with your life. I want you to get remarried. I want you to find happiness again. So I had that permission, but sure, I felt guilty and I felt judged. There were some people who would judge me. I was out partying. I was a 34-year-old widow and I was out partying. The stories I have, but yes.
We can exchange them.
Yes. But yeah, there's a lot of darkness in the world, but we can't carry all of that. I do hope that we can still continue to find joy. And that's what's so great about your show, is that even when things are going terribly in the world, hopefully we can find one spark of joy, just one little one, and step on that and build on it.
Well, and that's the important part. And it's you said that about gratitude. It was about not being able to find it, or to then just saying it and trying, and it feels almost like it was this, I don't know, desperate plea or this reach to just feel better.
Yeah.
And it's what you're saying right now, that just reaching for that little spark, that can grow and turn into a flame.
Yeah, it really can. Because 10, 12 years ago, my mother-in-law we sat down at Thanksgiving and she said, okay, we're going to start a gratitude journal. Everybody write down something they're grateful for. And I thought, I don't have anything to be grateful for. And I was with my family, but I just wasn't grateful for my family because I was so deep in my depression and didn't know it. But now I'm incredibly grateful, and the list of gratitudes is long. And they're not big things. Like I said, they're not all big things.
Yeah. I know I mentioned about you standing on the TEDx stage and giving that message. And I know that was your first public and on a major stage. Yes. What was that like for you?
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of memorizing.
I know.
But once I got there, and they do say something about you step on that red dot and it all goes away. And sure, I was nervous. If you watch the video, you can see my legs shaking. But it was incredibly empowering to walk away. And I think the what's happened after the fact has been more healing than anything, because we are reaching survivors through that TEDx talk. We're reaching researchers, and we're getting people the help that they need and the resources. So again, it's healing.
And it was brave and courageous, because as you know, we talked, not many people were talking about sibling sexual abuse.
Yeah.
It was much easier for me to go and find resources on sexual abuse, but not siblings. So stepping out in that public spotlight like that, I mean, that took a lot of courage. But was there, I imagine, healing in that?
Yes, lots of healing. And now researchers are using that TEDx, and social workers are sharing that TEDx. So that's great. So I'm ready to pass the baton on to the next person who wants to do the next TEDx talk on that subject matter. It's, just open that door. Yeah.
It's so important, I think, for people to hear today about these chapters in our lives and the permission. I'm going to use permission again, the permission to be able to move forward from them and not feel badly. I think when I stopped talking so much about my childhood trauma, there was guilt that I felt like I was leaving people behind or leaving, that I wasn't helping people.
Yeah.
But then I realized that in sharing my gift and in sharing joy and in having this show and this platform, that there was joy in that and there was helping people in that. And so I know that you're in the same place. And so what is life for Jane now? Clear or not? I saw that face. Like, clear or not, that's okay. Like, what does it look like today for you?
I feel like I'm in a little bit of the muddled area of I like being an advocate and I like helping other people because I am passing the torch, and more people are coming to us and they're saying, okay, I want to go to colleges and speak about this, or I want to write a blog about this, and that's great. I'm like, great, go. So I'm kind of in that messy middle where I'm really enjoying being a mom, and my kids are going to go to college in 2.5 years, and we're visiting colleges and we're talking about colleges, and I think they'll go to college. There's no pressure, but we're really enjoying just being a family unit. And I am having to give myself that permission. And by you talking about your childhood, maybe you've passed the torch on to someone else who's doing something that you may not even know who you inspired.
That's exactly it. And that's what I want people to walk away with today, knowing that it's okay to be right where you're at, to be on that journey, to not know. I mean, we think that we know, even just in everyday lives, like this control, but I have no idea what's going to happen when I walk out the door. A pigeon will poop on me. It's just good luck. It's good luck, though.
That's what they say.
But we don't know, and that's okay. And we don't have to have it figured all out. And I was going to say that I feel like part of needing to know was that control, is that trauma response. And it feels like the laying down of arms now to say, okay, I worked on myself. I've now helped others. And now it's like you said, passing the baton. And I just get this image of, a shield or a sword and just laying that down.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There's so much beauty in doing that. And so talk about you have an upcoming memoir. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, memoir. It's been in the works for 5 years, and it is part of sharing your story. And I believe in the power of sharing your story, even if you just write it down for yourself. Because if you can write it down, I was able to write it down and reorder my life and figure out, oh, this is why this happened. This is why I do this. And you can look back and say, wow, I survived that. I did that. It's okay. And when you just write, it's amazing what your writing reveals to you. So I strongly suggest journaling or writing it down. It's been healing, and it's turned out to be really a gift for me. And when the kids are old enough, then they can read it.
Yeah, you can sit them down for story time.
Yeah, they know some of it, and sometimes they hear things from my past like, we didn't need to know that.
Yeah,
they're teenage boys.
I think I'll get to exactly. Is there anything else that maybe secretly brings you joy?
I don't know if this is a secret or not, but I love the rain, and I love to run in the rain, and I love splashing in puddles, and I don't care if my shoes get soaking wet. Something secret that gives me joy is my silk pillowcase.
I love that. First, I just love this idea of you splashing around in puddles. I don't think that we do enough of that.
No.
So maybe we could do that sometime.
Yeah. In dry LA.
Jane, thank you for your bravery, your courage, your vulnerability, your beauty. Thank you for just being open and saying, this is my new chapter, and passing the torch on, and for the beautiful advocacy work that you have done, for being my friend, and for most importantly, just being you.
Thank you. And right back at you, every single one of those. Thank you.
It's time to top off your cup of joy with this week's
I would say the amount of love I get from my friends and my family. I give out a lot of love and I get a lot of it back. The love and respect. It's very, very important to me. It makes me feel real good. Makes me get up and go to work every day.
You extend love and you allow yourself to receive love.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things to do is it's all about self-love. And what I have learned is that sometimes we need to love on ourselves. And so will you do a self-hug with me? Yeah. And what would be awesome as you do that is to just say something really loving to yourself as you hug yourself. Yeah.
I'm proud of you and I'm proud of the man that you have become.
I love that. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us and spreading some joy to yourself.
Thank y'all very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure that you go and take that smile and share it with somebody else. I'll see you next week on another episode of Good Morning Joy, where every day starts with a smile.